I am Mr. Obsidian. Prepare yourself for the Man of Black.
You're fired. 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 Let's go.
But so that's right. We'll fire Hillary. Hillary, you're fired.
40 years they've been trying. You couldn't fire somebody. They were horrible, doing a terrible job for the veterans. Robbing, stealing, hurting people. You couldn't do anything. It's called the Veterans Accountability Act. And now you can say you're fired.
You're fired. You're fired. You're fired. Hillary, you're fired.
Want me to speak?
What did you want to say?
In my defense.
I don't want you to talk about the case now. I've got a bunch of DAs here, and everything that you say, they can use it against you.
Absolutely.
Now it's not.
And I have nothing to hide, sir. I'm leaving the country. I have to leave the country to teach Bible and English in Ukraine on Monday. I've been planning this for months.
I'm not putting a travel restriction on you. I'm just ordering you not to consume alcohol or illegal drugs.
I haven't. I had 2 lens replacements that week, sir.
You are not to consume alcohol, illegal drug, or unprescribed controlled medication.
I don't anyway.
Well, then it shouldn't be a problem. How long are you planning on being out of town?
7 months until May.
This is going to be an issue. You need to hire a lawyer.
I will be my own lawyer, sir. I have nothing to hide.
You can't take off for just 7 months. It can't happen.
Half of the things that officer said was a lie.
That's why we have trials.
I had 4 ounces of wine.
Let's not talk.
Statute aimed at punishing fraud can indirectly compel involuntary servitude if it punishes failure to perform labor contracts. This violates the 13th Amendment, which prohibits involuntary servitude and cannot be violated indirectly through statutory presumptions. A state cannot enforce contracts of personal service by presuming intent to defraud due to failure to perform. This is unconstitutional. The existence of a contract does not allow for enforcement via compulsion if it contradicts the federal anti-peonage acts. Any state legislation that tries to force labor by criminalizing non-performance violates the anti-peonage acts.
All right, this one's for all my Lone Stars and folks out in Texas.